Here we go, Chapter 7 of The Doll People. Mrs. Palmer picked up Annabel. "I thought I saw you," she started to say, then she shook her head. "Simply impossible." She was going to say, "I thought I saw you running." Annabel, lifeless, hung stiffly from between Mrs. Palmer's fingers. Mrs. Palmer muttered something else, then set Annabel on the edge of the coffee table. "The girls should know better," she said, and she continued toward the kitchen. Twice, though, she looked over her shoulder at Annabel, and she started on her way back to the stairs. So she put Annabel on the edge of the coffee table, and it looks like she went upstairs. Doll State. Annabel was in Doll State. She remembered the last time she'd been in Doll State and imagined what was going to happen next. In the morning, Mrs. Palmer would have a talk with the girls, then scold Nora and tell her that she had nearly tripped over Annabel in the dark. Then how horrible it would have been if she would have stepped on Annabel, she would say. "I could have crushed her." Then Kate would carry Annabel back to the dollhouse and most likely put her to bed. The dolls would wait patiently for the Palmers to leave. When the coast was clear, Mama and Papa would call to Annabel. She wouldn't be able to answer them, and then everyone would know she was in Doll State again. In her mind, Annabel sighed. She lay on the coffee table and tried to entertain herself by thinking amusing thoughts. Amusing means entertaining. But she was too cross. She couldn't think of anything funny. This was the night her family was supposed to go visit the Funcrafts. Had they gone without Annabel? Was she missing the fun? Annabel tried thinking about her birthday. It was coming up soon, May 12th. A spring birthday. Annabel thought spring birthdays were the best of all. In the doll family, Annabel's birthday came first, then Nanny's, then Papa's, then Uncle Doll's, then Baby Betsy's, then Mama's, then Auntie Sarah's, and finally Bobby's. Their birthdays were the dates on which, over a century ago, the doll maker had completed them, had put the final touches on them, and at last said, "There, all done," and let out a small, proud sigh, which had made his white mustache puff out. When he had finished Annabel, he placed her on a wooden shelf in his workshop in London, next with several other completed dolls. That evening, after he left his workshop, the doll nearest to Annabel had nudged her, bumped her with her elbow. "Time to take the oath," she had said. "What?" Annabel had not felt quite awake yet. She was still in the half-sleep state in which she'd found herself when the dollmaker finished her that afternoon. Before that, she had not been conscious at all. That means conscious means awake. "You should take the oath now," the other doll said. "The doll code of honor. You have to take it while no humans are present. Repeat after me. I, Annabel, an avowed member of the race of dolls. I, Annabel, an avowed member of the race of dolls," Annabel repeated sleepily, "do hereby promise to protect our secret life. Do hereby promise to protect our secret life." Annabel felt more awake. By upholding the doll code of honor. By upholding the doll code of honor. In accordance with its everlasting law. In accordance with its everlasting law. In other words, the doll said, if you err, if you make a mistake, and put the secret life of dolls in danger, you could become an ordinary doll again. An ordinary doll. Even though she had taken the oath over 100 years earlier, whenever Annabel remembered this particular moment of her birthday, she shuddered slightly. It made her think about permanent doll state. Perhaps there was some truth to it, but Annabel rarely dwelled on the possibility. After Annabel had taken the oath, the other doll said, "You know, you can take back the oath. You don't have to be a living doll." And here's the picture of Annabel. Whoops, it's dark. With all the other dolls on the shelf. There's Annabel, right there. You can choose to be an ordinary one from the start, but that decision is irreversible. Of course, as an ordinary doll, your life would be much easier, but it would be boring. Annabel had finished. For her, now fully awake, "Forget it. I want to be a living doll, a doll person. I'm sure it's much more fun." "Very well," the other doll had replied. And then they had talked about Doll State and many other things. But Annabel was quite certain that the exact words permanent doll state had never been mentioned. 3 weeks later, the doll maker had completed Nanny. That evening, it was Annabel who had given Nanny the oath. something she did not let Nanny forget, even though Nanny, as a nanny, was the one who had to remind Annabelle to live by the doll code of honor. Annabelle knew she would always be a kid, and Nanny would always be a grown-up, and if somebody had to be a grown-up, Annabelle was glad she wasn't the one. Annabelle had celebrated her next birthday in the dollmaker's shop, but she celebrated the one after that and all the others in the house at 26 Weatherby Lane. And Annabelle always remembered to make a secret wish on her birthday. Often the wish came true, which was nearly as good as getting a present. Annabelle's thoughts drifted to Auntie Sarah's journal. She considered spiders and nature study exploration. She imagined Auntie Sarah blending near the radio in the living room, where else might she have blended? Where had her adventures taken her? Had Auntie Sarah ever left the Palmers' house? Had she been outdoors? Annabelle had not been outdoors since the day the shipping carton had been delivered to the Cox's doorstep in 1898. But she thought about the outdoors often. It was a huge world. It was far bigger than the doll's house. It was bigger than Kate's room. It was even bigger than the Palmers' entire house. It was enormous. Annabelle didn't know any doll who had been outdoors by herself, but she wondered about Auntie Sarah. And she had a feeling the grown-up dolls wondered about her too. She felt sure, in fact, that there was something the grown-ups were not telling her about Auntie Sarah and her disappearance. What was it? Were they afraid Auntie Sarah had gone outdoors? If she had, chances were she would never return or be found. Not after all this time. Were they afraid Auntie Sarah was in permanent doll state somewhere? Were they afraid she had been damaged or broken beyond repair? All those things were scary. But, thought Annabelle, she would much rather know the truth than go on wondering. Mama had said that because they were dolls and could not violate the doll code of honor, they had not gone looking for Auntie Sarah. Annabelle had recently decided that she no longer believed this. In fact, a horrible thought occurred to Annabelle as she lay motionless through the long night. The grown-up dolls, she now understood, were afraid to look for Auntie Sarah. Afraid! And because of their fear, they were willing to give up on her and Annabelle's beloved auntie. Not fair, thought Annabelle. Not right. As soon as I can, Annabelle decided as the living room began to grow faintly dusky in the early morning light, I'm going to search for Auntie Sarah again. I'm going to find her. I will do whatever it takes. Maybe Tiffany can help me. We will read every single word of Auntie Sarah's journal. We might find a clue. We will search every inch of the Palmers' house, even if it takes years. We will search outdoors if we have to. I don't think Tiffany would be afraid to do any of those things. Annabelle tried to shift to a more comfortable position on the coffee table, but she couldn't budge. Doll State was so annoying. She simply lay there and waited and waited and waited some more. At long last, morning came, and things happened pretty much the way Annabelle had imagined they would. The next evening, when 24 hours had passed and Annabelle was no longer in Doll State, she told her family what had happened. Nanny scolded her, Mama hugged her, and gave her a small talking to. Papa patted her head and told her to try to be more careful, then gave her a small talking to of his own. And Uncle Doll said, "Tisk, such a risk." But he whispered to her, "Did you see anything interesting while you were down there?" And Annabelle smiled at him and shook her head. The end of chapter 7. See you later.